looked at me and he said that he would rather fight a horse-sized duck. Can you believe that? Oh, hi everybody. I didn't see you there. Oh, well, I guess, okay. Well, now that we're here,
yes.
Welcome back to People of Faith, our third episode. We're so glad that you joined us. Thank you for taking some time out of your day just to hang out with us. I hope you've enjoyed the last couple of episodes, and as is every week, got a special treat for you. Right here, I want to introduce my friend, Miss Ginevra Ott, who is our Residential and Clinical Director for Arms of Hope Bowles Campus. Ginevra, thanks for taking some time to come and hang out with us today.
I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, it's good stuff. All right, we've got some questions. Let's get to it. So again, this is a TV show, Devo thing, whatever we want to call it, called People of Faith. There you go. If you forget, you're welcome. It's good stuff. I wrote it myself. My son did not. Don't judge me. Before we get into some of the deep stuff, Ginevra,
yes.
You know, if you watched last week's episode with our campus director, we can't say anything bad about him because, right. As we know, he has the power to fire us and yes. All of that stuff. So
it's gonna be hard. Yeah.
So and we don't need to worry about that right now. It's gonna be good. But like Joel, who had a speed round, right?
Okay.
He had 3 questions, and the whole point of these questions is just kind of get him loosened up, just get us ready for those deep theological, yes. Like what makes Ginevra tick,
okay.
Kind of stuff. But we got to have a little bit of fun,
okay.
Before we get
all
there.
Right.
So you got 3 questions for your speed round. Ginevra, have I told you what these questions are?
No, you have not.
Are you scared?
A little.
A little. Good. This is going to be fun. All right, Ginevra, and again, we're not going to think through this, right?
Okay.
I'm going to ask the question, and we need some answers
Got it.
quick. All right. Question number 1. Ginevra, who would win in a fight between a taco and a slice of pizza?
The taco.
Why?
Oh, because it's spicier.
Ooh, spicy. Okay, that's good. That's good. No, I like that. Okay, taco would win over a slice of pizza.
Yes.
What if it was a supreme slice of pizza?
Oh, no. Because there's lots of protein in that.
A lot of protein. Yeah,
so
a little more evenly
matched. A little
matched.
bit more bulky. Yes.
I would pay to see that fight.
Yes.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
So. Yes.
No, that's good. All right. Question number 2.
Yes.
Would you rather have the ability to read minds or tell the future?
Oh, that's very hard.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't really want to do either.
I know, but you have to choose
one.
one.
I have to choose then tell the future.
Yeah.
Tell the future. I don't want to read people's mind because I don't want to know what they're thinking.
Yeah, I mean, of course, everybody here on the
Seems
campus, everybody here on campus would have nothing but good things to think about you,
right?
So, I mean, there'd be that sense of encouragement walking around campus, but sometimes we cut people off in the grocery store. That's a solid answer. So, tell the future.
Tell the future.
Okay.
Yes.
And last question.
Okay.
It's singular.
Okay.
There's just one more.
Okay.
How many chickens would it take to kill an elephant?
Gosh, I don't think it's possible.
Hurry, the elephant's coming. How many chickens?
I don't know, like 4 million?
4 million?
Yeah.
Okay, that's solid.
Pecking to death?
I mean, there's at least a solid chance, right? You wouldn't put 20 chickens up against an elephant.
No, I wouldn't.
No, those are good. Those are solid questions. Where Joel has the power to fire both of us, you definitely did better than he did.
Oh, of course I
So,
did.
feel good about that.
Yeah.
Well, Ginevra, thank you for that. It's a good speed round. How are you feeling? Are we feeling good?
I'm feeling good.
Okay. Do we need more? Are you ready to get into it? How are you? What are you thinking?
No, I'm ready.
Okay, good. All right. So, as you know, Ginevra, it's a show about people of faith, right? So, I'm spending time with different people throughout our community and our campus over the course of the last couple of weeks, and probably will continue to do it for the next several weeks. And the point of this show is to really just sort of get to know you better. We a lot of us know you maybe better than some do, and so this is an opportunity for those of us who may not know you as well to get to know you. But also, as the show is titled, I, as somebody who has gotten to know you quite a bit over the course of the last year and a half or so, know without a doubt that you are a person of great faith, and so just kind of an opportunity for us to dig a little bit deeper into that, and we're excited to hear some of the things that you have to say. So really, just to kind of start it off on a basic level, if you would just start by telling us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, maybe some things that you've done throughout your life, and sort of the big one, right? Like what led you to be in the position that you're in now? What made you never want to be a counselor, and what keeps you here doing what you're doing now?
Okay. So I was born in Greenville, and I lived in Greenville all my life except from ages like 19 to 27. So I still live about a mile from where I grew up.
Oh,
so
wow.
like my mom still lives in that house, and then my husband and I built a house. It's probably like a mile away on some family land. We
It's a
live
really
out
cool
on-
house, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Mhm.
So we live like out in the country on 200 acres.
Yeah.
So that was my family's land.
Sweet.
So yeah. When I was 18 or 19, I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life at all whatsoever. And so I went to live in Dallas, and I did community college, and kind of did a couple of things there, you know, to put all my basics, everything. I've always been pretty smart in school, so school wasn't really hard. So I just knocked out my basics.
Nice.
And I was a hostess at a Mexican food restaurant.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and I lived with my brother. We were roommates. He's 10 years older than me.
Okay.
But we were roommates, and so that was it was just really a fun time, like a kind of a party time. And so, and then I worked as a home health agency as a billing person, and I absolutely hated it.
Okay.
Like, it was so opposite of anything that I do now. Numbers and billing and insurance and all this kind of stuff, and I absolutely hated it. And I realized I hated it, and I was like, I probably should do something with my life. And so, I was doing something with my life. I probably should, you know, do something I love to do.
Yeah.
So I went back to school, and so everyone that I worked with was telling me, like, you're the best listener, you're the best person to, you know, come. I mean, everyone would come in my office and like talk through personal issues with me. So they were all like, you should be a therapist. So I was like, oh, maybe I should do that. So anyway, I looked into it, and once I started back to school, that's what I did. And I was 27 when I went back to school.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry, 25.
Okay.
25, 26 when I went back to school. And then I married my high school sweetheart, but we had been apart for 5 years, and he had gone off to the military. Okay. And so then when he got out of the military, he went into business with my dad.
Okay.
And my dad had built houses for 30 years.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So he was like, I need somebody to come into business with me because my dad's getting older, all those kinds of things. So my husband came in, they were partners, and it worked really well. We moved back to Greenville, and I had children. So I had Caden when I was 29, and then I finished graduate school, my master's degree, when she was a little baby.
Wow.
So she would go to my mom's, and whenever I go to class or do papers or anything like that. And so I was a stay-at-home mom for the first 14 years of our marriage, and I loved it, and I didn't want to do anything different. And I was like, I always wanted to be a therapist, but I was like, oh, I'll do that after I'm a mom. And then the economy went like this, and so I had to go back to work.
Yeah.
And I was really, really mad. I was really, really angry at God, because I was like, no, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So I went back. I'd already finished graduate school, all of that. So then I started doing my 3,000 hours that you have to do to get the license that I have. And I did that at the psych hospital.
That's a lot of hours, by the way.
It is a lot of hours, right? And at that time, I can't remember how old Caden was, but Charlie was like in the first grade.
Okay.
So, and then I loved it. I mean, I really loved it. And I was like, okay, God, you know what you're doing. You know, because I was just mad at him because I thought he was going to make me do something I hated and didn't want to do, because I wanted to do with my kids.
Sure.
But he worked it all out, and I went back to work. So then I went to the psych hospital as an employee. And I was a therapist at the psych hospital for a couple of years, and then I went to work at Rafa, and I worked with clients who had unplanned pregnancies, and a lot of people who had issues with CPS, and they were having parenting. I did parenting education, and then counseled with people who were trying to get their children back after they'd been taken from CPS.
Oh, wow.
And I met Scott Waters.
Okay.
And Scott Waters and I did some abstinence classes in the Lone Oak High School together and a couple of the other high schools.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so then when I was working at Rafa, I was not making hardly any money. It was a nonprofit. And so we were like, okay, I've got to go back and make more money. Caden was getting closer to going to college and all that kind of stuff. And I was only working 3 days a week. So I was like, all right, I have to go full on, right? And so one day I found on the internet this job. Okay. And I was like, I know Scott, maybe I should just call him. So I called Scott and I said, is that position still open? It was for a clinical coordinator. And a therapist here. And I said, is that still open? And he was like, well, we've already done interviews and they were gonna shut it off, but let me ask. And so he asked and he's like, no, they're willing to interview, but even though we've kind of shut the process off. So I came in the next day and interviewed, and then 2 weeks later I started working here.
Yeah.
So
man, and that was as clinical coordinator, right?
Clinical coordinator.
And so you've even taken a step.
Then I went to clinical director, and then to residential and clinical director.
Wow.
So, and I've been here in February it was 3 years.
3 years, man.
3 years, yes.
That's good stuff. I love, so much of your story, just, and I know you gave us this much of it, right?
Yes.
We got to keep the episode somewhat small. People are telling me that 43 minutes was too long last week for whatever reason.
I don't know. Joel's such a complicated person.
I know, seriously. But a common thing came up that you mentioned that Joel even talked about a little bit last week, of just, that, when you were younger, you're out of high school, and you just you didn't know what to do. And I remember also being sort of in that situation where you're looking around and you might even be seeing people sort of advancing and they look like it have it all figured out.
They got it all together.
You kind of feel like you're just sitting there stagnant, not really knowing what to do or what to do with your hands, like me, or something like that. But yet, as your story continues, right, you can see like all of the different ways that doors have continued to open. Whether it's marriage and family and different jobs and stuff like that. Man, that's what a powerful thing. And another thing that you mentioned too that I just really appreciate, right? You made that comment, that note that like you were angry with God during that season because you were having to stop what it was that you were doing. Yeah,
I had a plan.
You had that plan, and you were loving what you were doing. Being a stay-at-home mom and getting to do all of those things. And I think oftentimes, just within the Christian tradition, we are taught that if we are anything but happy with God all the time, then we're messing up, right?
Yeah.
And we can go back into Scripture and read about this, this theme of lament, right? Where very real people throughout Scripture are very mad for a lot of really, terrible things, right? And God being okay with that anger and that frustration, right? And God obviously didn't shun you, right? Like opened up some fantastic doors and even made, even though that had to happen, you were still able to really impact and do some beautiful things for folks.
Yeah. And I think I was honest with him too. I was like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I was like, I'm trusting you. You've really come through many other times. So I'm going to trust you in this, but I don't want to do this.
Right.
Because I had a plan of how, I was going to raise my kids to a certain point and then I was going to go and do that. So.
Right. Man, thank you for sharing that. Just the fact, again, that faith part of this Christian stuff will forever and for always be the most difficult part, right? But even in those moments, like you're talking about, whereas I know it wasn't probably as easy as we're even portraying it, or you're portraying it right now.
No, it's not. A lot of tears.
A lot of valleys and tough times. Yes. But yet God continued to provide in the midst of that. That's awesome. Well, Ginevra, again, thanks for sharing your story and a little bit about what led you to this position that you're in right now. I really enjoyed getting to know you and work with you these last year and a half or so that I've been on board and stuff like that. But I do have to ask, what is your favorite part about your job now? What is this last Sunday, as I was preaching about joy and grief, right? And nobody here is ever gonna pretend that life on Bowles campus is just rainbows and rivers of chocolate all the time, right? Like we've got our own valleys that we have to trudge through sometimes. But But on that same note, just as a community, like we have opportunities for a lot of joy. And so I'm just kind of curious, what do you find joy in? What is your favorite part about your job?
I think that my favorite part about the job is the relationships. The relationships with the kids and the relationships with the staff.
Yeah.
So I like working as a team. So before I took the job here, my husband and I were talking through me opening a private practice.
Okay.
And I didn't want to do that because I didn't want to be isolated by myself. You know what I mean? And just, I really wanted to work as part of a team. And so when I came here, I was like, okay, this is what I want to do, right? Yeah. So I like this working with the staff, like we work as a team together about what's best for the kids and how to handle situations. So the responsibility is not all on your shoulders, but there's a lot of people pouring into the decisions we make, and so there's a lot of prayerful thought about it. And so there's more confidence in doing that, and you work as a team when you're all talking and working together, instead of just thinking what's best, so we're going to do this, right? And so that just never felt right to me. So I like all the relationships with the kids that I have.
Yeah.
It doesn't take long for a kid to be here before we have some sort of inside joke, or we have I know what their favorite food is, or I know something about them that they love Chick-fil-A, they whatever, those kinds of things. And I love getting to know other people, and I love being around other people.
Right.
So even every day when I'm like, I want to come to work, I like it.
Yeah.
I want to be here. So, and I work with a lot of great people, and the kids are great. I like the moms too. I have not been able to, when I was clinical director, before I took the residential director, I had a little bit more time with the moms, and I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
But we haven't done life skills in a while, so I haven't been around the moms very much.
Yeah.
But I do love the moms and what they're doing. Being a single mom and all that, I don't know how they do it.
Right.
So
superheroes,
exactly. And so, but when I do life skills with them, I love working with them, and I love seeing them love on their kids and building relationships with them. So I just love the whole community. The whole community thing.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, I had somebody explain it to me one time, just thinking in ministry terms, right? Like what we do here, and very much what you do here, is relational ministry, right? Like you may be the residential clinical director, but you're also one of the ministers on campus. And you talking about how much you love going out and spending time with the kids and staff and stuff like that. I mean, that's something that we see, right? We see that all the time, and we can see that you take joy in that. So don't lose that, because you're good at that. I know there's a little bit of sadness on our campus right now, especially for residential, just because a lot of stuff has been canceled this summer, right, due to the COVID-19. Unfortunately, Trek's off the table, and a lot of the camps that we were planning on aren't happening anymore. And I know those are such big and powerful ways for some of that connection stuff to happen. And so I'm excited to continue to brainstorm about other things that we'll be able to do this summer.
We're going to do some fun stuff.
Yeah, it's not necessarily about the things that we've lost, but whereas I'm sad things like camp and stuff aren't going to happen, I'm really kind of excited to see like what we get to do in its place. I think it's going to be pretty sweet.
It is going to be awesome.
Again, it's no secret that you find joy in your job. So thank you for being a person that's in the position that you are, and still finds joy and still has your faith sort of wrapped around within that. Next question I have is really if you would just tell us a little bit about what faith in church looked like in your life growing up, what that looked like growing up in school and into your 20s and stuff, and what role does faith in church have in your life right now?
Okay. So I was baptized when I was about 6. Okay. And so I grew up in a home where we always went to church. My dad was a deacon, and that was something we always did. So it was very normal. I had a love for God at that point. I could tell that I really believed that my faith journey started at that age, but I did it mostly not to go to hell. is I grew up Baptist,
Yeah.
right?
Oh,
And
sure.
so,
Yeah.
well, and my cousin said, well, let's play a game. Anyway. She had a pencil, and she was like, we're going to flip the pencil, and whichever way the lead is pointing, that's where you get to go. Either heaven or hell. And I was like, oh, I don't
Is that in
know.
Corinthians?
I don't
It's
know.
not.
that.
I'm just kidding.
But
It's
of
not.
course, the lead points down, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to hell.
Oh no.
You know what I mean? And so then I went and I was bawling and crying and went to my dad, and he was like, no, it doesn't work that way. And then he kind of shared that with me, and then that's when I was like, I believe that. I believe that Jesus is a real person and that he died on the cross and for my sin, but I just thought, okay, I get to pray the prayer, and that's really good, and now I'm good, right?
Yeah.
I'm really good. So then I went to a private school, Christian school, all from second grade all the way through high school. So I got a Christian education. I got a really good education, but I was pretty sheltered. I was pretty sheltered, and there was just I viewed the Christian faith as just a set of rules to follow. Okay, and me being such a person of relationship, I really didn't have a close relationship with God.
Gotcha.
And Jesus, I didn't really know where it all fit in together. So, and me being such a fun-loving person, we'll just put it that way, I was like, these rules really are just hard to do. Like this this doesn't make sense, right? And so I did a lot of things. I tried all the rules. I broke them, a lot of them, and just kind of went wild through my late teens, 20s in there. Tried different churches, tried different beliefs within the faith, stuff like that, because I was very much like, no, I'm going to go towards finding a loving God that doesn't have all these rules and things. And I still wasn't focused on relationship. And then, so I didn't really have anything when hard times would hit. It was like, the rules don't help me when I'm having depression. The rules don't help me when another relationship of mine has ended or fallen apart, or the rules don't really help me when my brother is dying of AIDS. You know what I'm saying? When I was 23, my brother died of AIDS, and my sister and I were his caregivers.
Wow.
And so none of that ever helped me. And so I was like, God, where are you? You know? And so I still limped along quite a bit through that. I knew he was there. He was always there for me. I still had a real worshipful heart. Like I was like, okay, even though things are bad, I know you're real, and I know that you're, I'd still go to him and cry out to him, you know what I'm saying? But I still felt a lot of guilt and shame because I wasn't following all the rules. And I would try to muster it up myself, right? I would try to muster it up. I'm not reading my Bible enough. I'm not going to church enough. I'm not doing any of those, all of those things. And then, and I'd like to tell you that I knew this one day where things changed, but I don't. It was very gradual. But I just started growing up, and I started being an adult, and I started having, a marriage. God teaches you a lot during a marriage, right? Like a lot.
That's right.
And so here I was, completely joined to this person for the rest of my life, and when things didn't go right, it was like, oh, okay, we have to figure this out. And then we, both of us relied on Christ at that time. We just did. We were like, okay, we're two really broken people. And we have a plan. We have this great plan for our life, but it's really hard to do it at a day-by-day basis. And there were, lots of things. I was having a lot of miscarriages and, things like that. So you just you have to find something that you really truly believe in, So we started searching for God together, and we searched for a church, and both of us I wouldn't like this church, and he wouldn't like that church, and I would, and we, all of those kinds of things, and so I started really getting to know Jesus and God as a personal relationship, and then I was like, Lord, I'm broken, so need you to put this back together, right? And help me do this. And so he did, but it wasn't, he changed the things that he wanted to change. Right? And so I was like, oh, that's surprising. Because I thought you would want to make me like fix all of this stuff first, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, all of this, you do this wrong, you do all of these things wrong. And so I just really learned that it wasn't about making me a perfect person. It was about redeeming me out of the imperfections that I had and using them. So then we found Crosspoint Fellowship, where we go to church now, which is, we've been there for 15 years now. So a couple of things in my faith journey. Number one was we had a lot of miscarriages, 4 of them to be exact, and then we did adoption. So I had Kate when I was 29, and then we had 4 miscarriages, 1 before her and then 3 after her. And then we tried adoption, and then we did adoption, and that's just a crazy ride, right? And it was a private adoption, and it was a God thing. So I had my sister knew a friend who had adopted a child from Russia. And so she was like, why don't you just go talk to her? So I'm like, okay. So I go and I talk to her, and she's like, absolutely, this is great. You go over to the orphanage, and you have to spend like a month in Russia, and you do all these things. And I'm like, she's like, so they go through the court system, all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, yeah, it's like about $45,000. And I'm like, oh, wow, that must not be for me, right? I didn't know anything about adoption, nothing. And so then I tried again. We got pregnant again. I lost the baby again. And the 2 days after losing the baby again, my sister called me and she said, no, wait, let me back up. So I went in, we were building a new house where we live now. We've lived there for 15 years. Went in there, I was building the house, and we were building a house, I was cleaning it, we were about to move into it. And I was in my bedroom. I was in actually the room that was going to be the baby's nursery. And I was just sitting there praying, and I was reading in Samuel about David and Goliath. And I was like, this is what it feels like. Like, having another child feels like Goliath to me, like something I cannot do, right? And something I can't conquer. And the desire to have another child is like killing me, right? And so I just said, God, one child is enough. Like, just take the desire from me. Like, just take the desire from me so that I don't have that longing all of the time, that I think our family's not complete. And I didn't hear God audibly, because that doesn't really happen, but I heard, this room will not be empty. And I was like, well, that's not very nice. I'm handing this over to you, right? And you're telling me that to keep hoping, right? And so about 2 hours later, my sister called and said, hey, I know this is a hard time for you, but there's a baby. Would you be interested in adoption? At that moment, I just burst into tears, because I was like, oh my God, you're serious. You're serious. And then within 2 weeks, Charlie was born. The woman who I had gone to talk to about adopting from Russia was best friends with Charlie's birth grandmother. So she remembered that I came and talked to her. So she was like, oh, you might want to call this family and see if they want to adopt. And so we did. And so that was just a whirlwind. But what I learned about that is that God has a plan, right? I always have a plan, but God's plan is always better than mine. It's always better than mine. So we adopted Charlie. So then he just came through with that. And then at that point, I was like, okay, like, you really do have this. Like, you really do have this. And I can kind of let go of the control of what it needs to be, right? And so we went with that. And then so when that started happening, we went to a church that had a big adoption ministry, a big foster ministry. And so we had, got involved with a lot of those families. And that is when I heard about TBRI and all of that. And so then I found out they were doing it here. So when I interviewed with Scott, I was like, okay, Lord, this is where you're leading me, right? And so then we started doing more of that, and then we started doing it at our church as well. So in other words, it's just been kind of a mixed journey of what's been going on in my personal life as well as doing the work that I do here.
Yeah.
Right? It's just like he sort of just equipped me to do both of those at the same time.
Mm.
And going back to how I was angry about not being a stay-at-home mom.
Right, yeah.
Because I had these things that I wanted to do, and he was like,
Yeah.
no, I've equipped you for other things as well. And one of the greatest parts, and this is how my faith comes through, is I thought, no, I got to take care of my children until they get old enough to do what, to be independent.
Sure.
So that I don't have to worry about them. And God was like, no, I have other work for you to do, and they'll be taken care of. You'll be able to do both. You'll be able to do both, right? And I've got this.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're very, very close in our church now. We're very, very close. We have my kids, and we have any number of people we can call if we need something,
Yeah.
right? When Caden, my daughter, went off to college, I was like, okay, if I don't answer the phone, because she was going off to college, 3
Sure.
hours away, if I don't answer the phone, give me 3 people
Yeah.
that you can call.
That's good.
If you need money, or you need counsel, or you need, you're in an emergency.
Sure, yeah.
And she named off 3 people from church,
Just
right?
like that.
Just like that.
Yeah.
Her second families,
Yeah.
and so I've had that really strong community in my church and in my faith, and I've not, I felt like in my church I've not had to be perfect.
Mm.
I've really shared all of the struggles that we've had,
Yeah.
and people in the church are having the same struggles.
Wow.
And we have a small group, it's called a life group, that we go together, and we've gone through sickness in families, we've gone through losing jobs. We've all been together about 10 years. We've gone through losing jobs, people having babies, adopting.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a couple of adopted kids in our small, it's just been a huge journey, and I've been doing it with those people, and God just, God works out his plan, and I realize that it's always way better than my own plan.
Yeah.
And I'm a planner.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, I like my to-do list, and I like it all down. And then he goes, no, we just do it this way, right? So.
No, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. The question, what role has faith in church played? What does it currently say, or what does it currently play? A lot, right?
A lot.
Yeah,
A lot. And I think for in healthy relationships, and I kept trying to figure out God, but it was like within those relationships and within sitting under the preached word, and then walking that out in life with other people who were struggling as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's when God got really real.
I
You know
love
what I'm saying?
that
Like
too,
that's when it got really real. And
Yeah.
and I was trying to do it all on my own, and he was like, no, you need to do it. It's a process, and it's God's people that do it. It's
Yeah.
not just an individual relationship with me and God that I get square. It's like, no, I'm leading a people.
Yeah. The scripture doesn't say you are the church. It
Right.
says we are the church.
Yes.
I love that. And I mean, and even just the way that you're talking about your faith and just sort of how being with people sort of makes it click a little bit better, right? I know lots of people that choose to not be a part of this Christian stuff because they look at scripture like I used to, just like you, right? As this big rule book. And if you do everything right and you're lucky, maybe you'll get to go to heaven and sit on a cloud and sing, or whatever people say, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, or if you mess up too many times, so sorry, the pencil lead points at you.
Points down
you go. And I don't know where it clicked with me, but at some point, right, I stopped looking at it as a rule book and look at it more of like the story of God unfolding, and God over and over again showing his people to continue today, right, of how far God is willing to go, for us, who he has created us in our image, and all the way up to the cross, or to the cross where Jesus died for all of our sins. But man, I know so many times in my life where I've tried to do it all by myself.
I still try.
Me too.
And then I'm exhausted, and then I go, oh, wait, this may be why I'm stressed and exhausted.
Yeah.
It's because I'm trying to do this on my own.
Because we fall on our face every time when we try, right? I think we can fake it till we make it for a while.
For a while.
But I know that I'm thankful for the circles that I have. You know, Shannon and I and my kiddos have enjoyed the little bit we've gotten to hang around with y'all's small group, and I think that's it, right?
Yeah.
Is finding people, you know, people of faith also that are willing to pick us up and maybe smack us around when we're not doing what we're supposed to do.
Yes, and encourage us.
Yeah.
But also come to us when they're hurting, you know, and then you're like, I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
That feels alone or that hurts or that screws up.
Yeah. And I think with that too, right? I think there's a big fear of people, whether they're believers or non-believers, that I don't want those Christian people to judge me. While they're, you know, high mighty places, you know, because they're so perfect, because they're Christians. And at the end of the day, I'm so thankful that I don't have a right to judge people, right? Like, you know, like we are called by God to walk with people, right? To teach people, to teach ourselves, to remind one another, for you to remind me, hey Matt, how are you loving God? How are you loving your neighbor today? And I appreciate you doing that for me very well. Yeah, thank you for being a person of faith. Thank you for being that example on our campus. Thanks for doing that for our kiddos. But thank you for doing that for me and for the rest of the staff too. I mean, your love for Jesus is something that doesn't go unnoticed, and I appreciate you just being somebody that's not ashamed of that by any means.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So our final question. Final one. We've made it. We're at the end. Has it been terrible?
No, it's good. It's
been
good.
okay.
We
need to brainstorm about who else we should do this to. Be fun.
Who else we should do this to?
Yeah. Who else should we torture? I mean, give the opportunity to do this. Yeah. Yeah. So the last thing. So if you could tell our staff and our residents anything, which you're going to, if you could tell our staff and residents anything right now, just in this weird season that we're in, as we're continuing to adjust and just figure things out kind of one day at a time, what would it be? What sort of wisdom would you depart with?
There's so many things, right? But if I really had one thing, it's kind of just along what we were talking about, is that you make your own plans. Just make your own. You have this outcome that you think you want, and that you know, even your prayers and your things start to go, can I have this? Can you do this? Can you do this for me? You know, and you mentioned joy too. Many people say to me, you're so joyful. You have so many joyous things. Believe me, I have my times when there's no joy, but I do feel like God gives me a great amount of joy. But I think the joy comes from, at some point in time, I started letting go of my own plans and just letting God make the plans for me. And even when something like COVID-19 comes in and changes everything, you can't even go to a restaurant, right?
Has it been stressful the last month?
Yes, it's been very stressful. You're homeschooling 17 children, you know, and I'm not doing it. I mean, we've got a staff of people. I mean, it's taking all of us, a village, to do that, right? And the kids, it's a complete transition for them. And so, but I've learned that, or at least I hold on to the fact that He's still in control. He has got some sort of plan. There's always good that will come out of it, right? So, and now talking about when we adopted Charlie, it was like all of the sadness and the hurt, but then after Charlie became part of the family, I was like, oh, I see what you were doing, right?
Yeah.
You know, I see what you're doing. You were waiting for him to come along, and you had already held a place for him in this family.
Yeah.
So, you know, my longing was for Charlie, right? Was for that child, but I thought, oh, it's got to be the next child, right? So I kept trying to get pregnant and getting pregnant and all of those things, right? And he was like, no, it's going to be there. It's just not the way you think it's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that when bad things happen or things don't go the way that we want them to, God usually has a much better plan that's going to bring you a lot more joy. A lot more joy. And I will get anxious and stressed when I try to get God to go with my plan. So when I start to focus my prayer life and all my decisions, everything towards getting what I want, the outcome, even though it may be a good outcome, right? When I start towards tailoring everything to get that, then my joy it diminishes. It's like putting a bushel over a lot, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
This little light of mine, remember the song, right? This little light of mine, you know, and it's like, and so it's like, that's what takes my joy. But when I can get up in the morning and go, okay, whatever you have planned for today, and whatever it is, whatever relationships, however you want it to go, however you're going to do it, he's going to provide everything that I need. And so I got to stop stressing so much about it. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense. You know, you're reminding me, you know, the book of Exodus in the Old Testament, right? Like, not to equate your life with Exodus, right? By any means, but very similarly to the Israelites, right? As you know, Moses, you know, brings them out of Egypt, and they have to wander in the desert for 40 years, and there were periods during that time where they're even like, God, I don't want to be here. Like, let us go back to Egypt and be slaves again.
For Egypt.
Yeah.
And it's like, let me go back to slavery.
Right. Yeah. And we read that and we think, well, that's crazy. But then we also, like, we too, like, have our own periods of wandering in the desert, right? And we're fortunate to be able to read the end of the story, right? And we know that for the Israelites, God shows up, right? Just like God shows up in our own life. And you've mentioned it a few times, right? I'm very thankful that God's timing is better than my timing.
It's always better.
But man, it's so hard to recognize that in the moment sometimes.
It's very hard to recognize in the moment. And in fact, you usually don't recognize it in the moment. It has to be a little bit afterwards, and then you go, oh. Yeah. But I think there's two things I equate it to. That the Exodus, I always do that. Sometimes when I feel that way, like I really am holding on to some outcome, I will tell myself, don't pine for Egypt.
That's good.
No, that's what I say about it, because I think that exact same thing in Exodus, don't pine for Egypt, because that was slavery, right?
Yeah.
That was something bad for them, but it was familiar.
Right, yeah.
So they wanted to go back, right? And then the other thing I think about is Joseph, the life of Joseph. Right? All of those things that happened to him. Yeah. But he ended up saving an entire nation.
Yeah, the finish line, right?
Exactly, the finish line. And so you know, I think about that, and it says what Satan used for evil, God used for good. So in other words, even the worst things that happened to him, God ended up using it for like this amazing story. Right. And not just save Joseph, but he ended up saving an entire nation from a famine, right? Exactly. So it's like, you look back on it and you go, oh, okay, well, yeah, that's probably a better deal.
Yeah, right.
That's right.
Take that one.
Yeah, not one person, but an entire nation. Yeah. Okay, that's probably better.
Amen. Yeah. What a way to end, though. Any advice or wisdom? Just to be able to find joy, and find joy in the fact that God has got this, even though when it may seem like everything is turned upside on its head.
It does. That's what it feels like. But it's like, and there's going to be change after this too, right? When the world goes back to whatever the new normal is. And we could be afraid of that too, but it's like, no, there's probably going to be something really cool. We've probably learned a lot from this. We just don't know yet, because it takes a while to see that. So.
Amen. Well, Ginevra, again, I know you've got a bazillion things going on your plate. You've kind of shifted from residential clinical director to like school facilitator, and you know, letting Matt come bug you about his problems from time to time and vent over different things.
Don't forget Bowles Academy principal.
Bowles Academy principal. She's doing pretty good. I gotta say,
the kids are doing good.
They are doing good. They are doing good. And at the end of the day, if counseling doesn't work out, I think you'd be a good principal.
Oh no. But thank you.
Yeah. But thanks for taking some time. Again, you know, it is so evident just sitting here listening to things that you've told me, things that I knew, maybe some things that I didn't know as well. But it is without a doubt that you're a great person of faith, and we are just so thankful to have you on our campus and being the presence that you are, and just at the end of the day, doing what God's called you to do, which is to love Him and love other people, and you do that well, and we appreciate you.
Thank you.
Love for you, if you're comfortable, to close this out in prayer.
Okay.
Pray for the campus and everything, right? We'll just say everything.
Everything.
Yeah.
Okay. Heavenly Father, and just thank you for this time with Matt. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about your life, Lord, talk about my life, and to show you to other people. I just know that any accomplishment or battle won was really because you did something through me. And I just hope that everyone heard that and heard your name and all that I said. But also too, Lord, I just want to pray for this entire campus right now. Lord, that we wouldn't be anxious, we wouldn't be afraid, that we would actually find great joy in just the very simple relationships that we have here amongst our residents, amongst staff, among house parents and kids, amongst me and kids, and just everyone, Lord, that we're healthy, we have a safe place, we have plenty to eat, we have plenty of toilet paper, we have everything that we need, and you knew this, you knew, and you walked before us, and you have us in this place where we are able to endure whatever this crisis brings, Lord, and we are equipped, and we're just thankful for you. I pray for each and every one listening to this morning or this afternoon or whenever they do listen to it, Lord. I just pray that that they feel loosened up to follow your plan, Lord, and just to trust in you, Lord, maybe to examine some of their plans and not hold on so tightly to where we become more anxious and more fretful, but Lord, that we say, okay, this isn't what I thought it was going to be, but I'm willing to try something new, and I'm willing to shed some of my worry and some of my fear, and just walk in trust. We pray for these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thanks, G.